this.
Tycoon! Come on!
Fantazio took him down!
Can't afford.
No holding back!
Fantazio took one out!
It's okay.
Keep it up!
If I say so myself.
Hey, welcome back guys. In this video, I wanted to talk about the Tycoon archetype in Metaphor ReFantazio. I have previously made a video on the first form of this lineage, Merchant, and I want to continue with the final form. The Tycoon archetype of course functions very similar to Merchant, but there are new inherits and weapons you can use with it. So I thought I would make a video on what builds and gear I have been using. Like, sub, and share if this video ends up being helpful, and let's jump straight into it. The Tycoon class is unfortunately unlocked very late in the game. You have to fully complete Brigida's follower rank, and the earliest date you can complete this is September 28. By the time you reach this date, you will also automatically unlock the Prince archetype for the protagonist through the story. The Prince archetype is of course very good due to its learnt skills, as well as the fact that it can act as any archetype for synthesis. But despite this, Tycoon can be worth using sometimes over it. The main reason is due to how strong the same archetype passives are. Things like Heat Up and Diligent Discipline give a lot of attack and crit rate if you have a full party of matching archetypes, and from some early testing, it seems like Prince does not work with these passives. I originally thought Prince would count as a royal with the other royal archetypes that your party members get, but this seems to not be the case. Therefore, Tycoon being able to properly use all these passives is a huge gain. With that out of the way, let's talk about what makes Tycoon good. Firstly, it uses money instead of MP for its skills, and its hero passive lets you farm super easily, so you're never at risk of running out. Secondly, Tycoon has a great kit right out of the box. Its move Gold Rush does heavy almighty damage with a high 35% crit chance, Item Connoisseur, which doubles your item effectiveness, Critical Trade, which straight up doubles your crit rate, and Almighty Boost for more damage. Having a great starting moveset definitely gives it a leg up versus other archetypes. Next up, I wanted to talk about the inheritable skills I have been using to make Tycoon even better. The first one is Sense of Kinship from the Berserker archetype, which states that it increases your attack by 10%, going further if you have more of the same archetype in your party. This passive initially sounds like just another version of Heat Up, but it is actually much stronger than that. What this passive actually does is act as a multiplier to your weapon's base attack. So at max stack, it essentially makes a 500 attack weapon function as a 751. And given how impactful weapons are for your damage in Metaphor, this is a huge increase and makes it the most impactful inheritable skill in the game. The next passive is Revenge Seeker from Destroyer. This passive gives you a damage boost scaling on your amount of lost HP. If you are at 1 HP remaining, it goes all the way up to 100%. As long as you are under 70% HP, it gives more of a boost than Heat Up, so you don't always have to be at a risk of dying for this passive to be good. Following this is Diligent Discipline from Brawler, which I also used on Merchant. This passive gives 30% critical rate with a full matching party, and this can make Gold Rush have a base critical chance of 100%. Now, you can still miss crits occasionally depending on the enemy's luck stat, but this makes it very consistent. The last inheritance slot is kind of a toss-up depending on what you want. I went with Heat Up from the Warrior class for more damage, as it is another 30% boost at max stack. Other options include skills like Charge, Health Rust, Flawless. Really, after the first 3 slots, the last one is very much up to you. Next, I wanted to talk about how I build my teammates for this setup. My Merchant video did talk a lot about using a whole team of the same archetype because the matching archetype passives are really strong. But I know that a majority of people will want to run more than one type in a party. Luckily, there is an item in the late game called the Chain of Bonds. You get this accessory by completing the Silver Rank 1 challenge at the Colosseum. Basically, this accessory will treat 2 or 3 of the same archetype as 4 for the holder. This means you can get the full benefit of Sense of Kinship and other passives without a full mono team. The downsides are that it takes up your accessory slot, which can be used for more damage, and it seems to only be available once per playthrough. But if you end up getting it, it can be worth considering. So team building for Tycoon is not nearly as rigid if you have this accessory. Otherwise, you just want at least one character to have support skills so your whole team can do more damage. One passive that is good to have is Front Boost from Warlord, which raises all front row allies' attack by 10%. This passive is not stackable, so it's best used on one support character. Good support moves include Formation of Vigor and Shield Formation, which increase your allies' attack or defense by 2 stages. For debuff skills, there are Vidyartha from Trickster and Peerless Warcry from Berserker, which lower enemies' attack and defense by 2 stages. Debilitate, also from Trickster, lowers all stats by 1 stage. If you want to include healing skills on the support, you can, but I was fine with using items for everything. Moving on to gear, the weapon I am using is the Fortune God's Abacus, which tripled the cost and damage of money using skills. You get this weapon from completing Nereus' follower rank and doing the quest Petty Thief. There is another weapon called the Fortune Abacus that allows your money using skills to cost 0. Despite the slightly higher base attack on this weapon, the triple damage passive outweighs it, and you should have plenty of money at this stage of the game, so I would stick to the former weapon. For accessories at this point, you have some options. The best one for damage is called the Gambler's Manual. This accessory doubles your critical damage, so you can see why it would be so good with Tycoon. You get this for completing the Gold Rank 1 challenge in the Colosseum. I talked about Chain of Bonds already, it opens up a lot of team options if you want that. For your teammates, a good option is the Herald's Banner, which drops from enemies in the last dungeon. This accessory provides the passive short range boost, which is another 10% damage for front row allies. If you are mainly relying on synthesis for damage, say you're using Fortune slots with the Arcane Unity passive, the best accessory would be the Utilitarian's Manual, which decreases the press turn cost for all synthesis by 1. You get this from nighttime shops after completing Alonzo's follower rank. Okay, that was my guide on how the Tycoon archetype works and how to build it. It's pretty crazy this one lineage can carry you through the entire game while also being the best for farming. And with the Chain of Bonds accessory, you could get the benefits of a mono archetype team without even needing to run one. I hope you guys liked this vid, and keep a lookout for more Metaphor content. Given that I talked about the Prince archetype here, I did want to make a video on it, as well as the other royal archetypes. Let me know if that's something you all would like to see. But until then, have a great one.